moving on to number 12, we have just -5 cosine theta, so that would be a circle, and it would be, A is less than 0, so it's going to be to the left with symmetry on the polar axis. So symmetry here, and we know it's left of 0 because it's a -5. So we have a circle. It's symmetric to the polar axis. The maximum R value, here's me figuring it out. I substitute in a -1 first and get a +5, and I substitute a +1 and I get a -5. So our maximum R value is absolute value of R equals 5, and then I have to find out where. So I substitute 5 in, and I get I get cosine theta equals -1. And where does cosine theta equal -1? But at pi. And then also I have to say -5 equals cosine. I have to do both the positive and the negative, and I get cosine theta equals 1. Where does it equal 1? At 0. So it's plus or minus 1. Plus or minus 1. Where does it equal plus or minus 1? At pi and 0. So we have the angle being 0 and pi, where you have your maximum. So I know that I have 5, 0 as one point and 5 pi as another point. So you could go ahead and put, I'm sorry, and the backwards one, I'm sorry, was -5, right? When it's, we have to, let me try to explain this. We have 5 and -5. So one time it equals -5 and one time it equals 5. It equals -5 when I substituted a -5, which would be at 0. So it's -5, 0. And then when I substituted in the +5, that gave me the pi. So this is where the +5 is. So I have a point -5, 0, and 5 pi. So at pi it's 5, so I can put that. And at 0, it's -5, which is exactly the same point. So these are the same point. Okay, same point. Okay, so we have the zeros. We haven't done that yet. We need to do the zeros. So we're going to set the equation equal to 0, and we get cosine theta equals 0. Where does cosine theta equal 0? But pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. So we have zeros at theta equals pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. So if I'm doing the top half, all the points on the top half, so that I can use symmetry, I can say that I have 0 at -5, that was a point, and then pi over 2 was 0, and 3 pi over 2 is 0, but I'm not going to need that because it's got symmetry. So the first point I do on my calculator is pi over 6, and I get -4.3. So here's pi over 6, and I have to go -4.3. So that would be right here. And then its symmetry would be on the 5 pi over 6 side. And then pi over 3 is -2.5. So I'm on this one. Going negative, though, I'm on 4 pi over 3. And its match would be there. And then at pi over 2, I go to 0. Now, if I go to 2 pi over 3, I end up with a positive 2.5, which is this point again. So it just repeats after here. This is all repeat. So I have my circle, try to draw it good, on -5 cosine theta. So that was number 12, and I believe we just have one more of these to do.